Oh, it's happening. I see.
Oh
I
my
see
goodness.
Hello. Nobody. Oh, there are 4 people, I guess, who are waiting. Hello. Hi. This is Subscriber Appreciation Day for May of 2019. I thought we were in 2016. We've been in 2016 for 3 years now.
We've been in 2016 for a very long time.
So this is a wonderful, wonderful happenstance. I am so sorry for the stream being starting 40 minutes after it was supposed to end, but YouTube and apparently half the internet decided to just like take a shit earlier today.
Yeah, it was a bad time.
Okay, so what I'm hearing the story is that Google had a major server issue in its northeastern section, which means that not only did everything that Google owns went down, but everything that hosts its services on Google went down, which included Snapchat, Uber, like a whole bunch of websites. And so the internet basically like went half down for people in the most Twitter heavy part of the country, which is the New York adjacent area. So so there was a lot of Twitter going on. Now, as far as for everyone in the chat, I see we got Logan. We've got someone whose name is literally just the like apostrophe key. What happened to us? What's going on is the stream started late because the internet died. This time, it's not our fault. It is Google's fault.
It's Google's fault. Google Cloud just gave up.
Yeah. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna stream as long as we can before Kelly gets home. Lunch. I heard she's stuck on the subway, so I don't know when that's gonna happen. And then when it's time to go, we will pick up again at the end of June.
Yeah.
So first, to do an introduction, this is Subscriber Appreciation Day, which is a monthly stream I do in which I use my wonderful Z-list celebrity to grab cool people from the internet and get them to talk about things that you want us to talk about, and sometimes get distracted. So in this very prestigious, long series of discussions, this month we are introducing a new person to our pantheon, Sarah Zedig.
Hi.
Who runs the very well-named channel Let's Talk About Stuff. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah. So, my YouTube channel is Let's Talk About Stuff, and fittingly, it's sort of just whatever I want to talk about. So I'm currently in the middle of like a long-running Twin Peaks deep dive, which the first episode of that came out over a year ago, and the second episode is yet to come out because I'm the worst. But like this month, I'm releasing 2 videos about the webcomic Homestuck and like metamodernism. And there's just a million other things that I'm doing. I also run the podcast Trans Questioning, and I do lots of other things. If anybody knows me, they probably know me from my Politics of the McElroy Brothers video. And because that one got pretty big. It got a couple of views, I guess.
Yeah, I actually found your work through. Now, I mean, you are part of the greater BreadTube area, but your stuff, like you had the spike in the browse features. You have a rivalry going with Sarah Zed.
Yeah, she stole my name. That's not exactly true. There was at one point where I was thinking of rebranding the channel and my Patreon, so I went searching for Sarah Z, and found her Patreon. Saw her description was almost identical to mine, so I got angry and I'm like, "Who is this? I want to watch her videos and criticize them." And I watched her videos and they were really good, and so I tweeted at her like, "We have a blood rivalry now, but I can't say your videos are bad because they're not." And then we just made it a joke. And now we talk. Now we're friends. So it worked out.
That's how the internet works. Actually, that's not how the internet works. It sounds like an internet miracle.
Yeah, how unlikely is it that I just happen to have the same name as another leftist media criticism YouTuber in the same general space? Like, it's a miracle she wasn't like a libertarian.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I know the exact same feeling because there is a Chicago area MMA fighter who has my exact name.
Oh,
And so obviously, we're in basically the same area of media.
yeah.
I think I follow from vanity Googling, we've gone from him starting as a Chicago area boxer to becoming for some reason, Nova Scotia area MMA fighter. And so I'm just like, it's like I'm watching a side career, but it's why I will never ever be the most famous Tristan Johnson. Oop.
Right.
I am streaming. That's what I'm trying to say. This is my wife's trying to call me.
Ah.
Saying I'm calling to ask about dinner. Oh boy. Yeah, this is gonna be real raw, friends.
Yeah.
I'm. Oh. Hi, Kelly. I don't know, but I just wanted to let you know that you're talking to the internet right now. We decided to do this stream for a little bit, so so yeah. Hi. Can we talk when you get home? I totally can. Okay. I don't know. We're gonna go. Okay. Okay. We'll talk later. Bye.
Oh gosh.
That was a discussion about whether to order supper. Okay. So sorry about that. That was very strange. Okay. So yeah, we have a lot of things to pick up
Yeah.
there. First of all, Politics of the McElroy Brothers was how I found you because it got picked up by the wonderful algorithm.
Yeah.
Those sweet, sweet boys came through for you.
Yes. That was a topic that I'd noticed that nobody was really talking about them in a political sense and like interpreting their work in like an auteurist way. And so I kind of figured that it had the potential to kind of blow up, and I rolled the dice on that and it worked out. I also had the luck of, I was on H Bomber Guy's Donkey Kong 64 stream, and a lot of people kind of flooded over from that to me and started searching around the same time as I released that video. So there were a lot of like little synergistic things that happened all at once with that video.
Sweet.
Yeah.
It's a good video. It's got like a lot of good like voice acting, and then and even like fun photoshops. Like I was just like, I remember like I did some research and I watched that video again right before we did the stream. And I remembered seeing things like, oh, you photoshopped a hammer and sickle to look like it was on a cheap like display board and stuff.
Yeah.
Like
What's funny is that video actually, or that picture actually already existed. I was just on my Discord server. Somebody posted that as I was discussing the video and like the challenges in the edit, and they posted that, and I said, "Hey, I'm stealing this."
I think the other thing too that I thought was amusing when I was watching it is like, oh, I'm realizing the deeper we go, this is turning into a video of what is the politics of specifically Griffin McElroy.
Yeah, that's really more what it was, to be honest. But it was, the thing is that that video is dishonest in a minor sense, which is that I'm very obviously only picking from 3 of like a whole bunch of properties, and it's impossible to parse like who is involved in what. And like really what I'm doing is using the ideas and like the means that they use to express like comedy, and seeing how like why they seem to have the effect on the audiences that they do. I don't necessarily, everything is political, like I say in that video, but I kind of fudge it a little bit and say this is obviously what they believe, but I don't think that that's true. It's more a little bit. It's more just like a joke, but yeah.
It's funny to the extent that oh wait, my brain completely died trying to think what that sentence was going to go. Okay, reset. It's been a day.
It's been a day for sure.
Okay. So to summarize the chat so far, there has been some wishes of happy tidings of the holy month of Pride. There has been just somebody yelling, Sarah.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Surprised that it's not canceled. Somebody with the amazing username of Spooky S Boneman saying that they found you through the Donkey Kong stream. I must have come at the wrong time because that's how I found Mia Mulder, but that's not. I don't think I was on when you were on or hearing when you were on.
Yeah, I actually brought Mia on, if I remember correctly.
Oh, you know what? I think digging into like the deepest of my memory banks, I think I did hear you on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mia stuck my head because she's a historian. So
yeah.
But then I found the McElroy videos later. So you know what? It all works out well.
Yes.
Okay. And oh yeah, there's a lot of interest in Homestuck, and I have a question about that because
sure, go for it.
Tristan doesn't know what Homestuck is, and a lot of extremely young people have been asking me to look at it and have opinions about it.
Oof. That's a big ask. Are you asking me to explain Homestuck to you?
If maybe a little bit.
Okay, well, I'll give you the short version. I'm literally working on basically 2 videos right now. One of them is kind of sarcastically an appeal to H-Bomber Guy to read Homestuck, which will be probably around 15 minutes. But it's really an appeal to everybody. And the second one will be a longer video looking at like a textual analysis to say like if explaining why the comic means something to me isn't enough, then maybe digging into the themes and ideas will help you, whatever. But Homestuck is a webcomic about a bunch of kids playing a video game together and learning its rules, and in the process the video game destroys the world, but the end state of the game is to create a new universe. It's about kids growing up, but it's also about a world where the idea of things are platonic. So if there's, I don't know, it's a ludicrously long, complicated, wild story that defies simplification because every element of it is miraculously intrinsic to the thing that it is. I honestly don't know. Like I've literally struggled with this question of how to explain it to somebody who doesn't know what it is for a long time. The easiest way is to say it's a creation myth for the modern era.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so from what I'm hearing, it's got a lot of textual depth to chew on that people get sucked into.
Yeah. And really good characters, and still some of the most complex, like queer relationships. And because it's gone on so long, there's a lot of like characters growing up and like digging through gender and misogyny and racism kind of in real time, which is something that a lot of fiction doesn't get the opportunity to do. So it's really interesting in that way. It's also notoriously hard to get into, and it's very long. But I mean, it affected me. I wouldn't say it changed my life, but it helped push me in a lot of more healthy directions in my life. I don't know.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people say that I should read it and that then I should have opinions about it. I'm not. It's like it happens a lot. Like there's a lot of stuff with like people expect me to have opinions about media, and also there's been this magical thing where people think that I know about philosophy when I don't.
it's weird. Like the YouTube era is asking everybody to some extent to be like an expert in everything. I was telling you before we started earlier that I get Curious Cat asks occasionally that are asking me like, what do you think about predictions on climate change? And I just want to say, like, I went to film school. I'm not a scientist. My opinion is climate change is happening and we should be doing more about it than we are.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say much more than that. Like,
for real. The thing about the philosophy thing is funny.
Yeah.
Just because like they go, history was actually it's the history of history is that it was set up to be a counterpoint to philosophy. Literally the opposite of philosophy that just uses examples instead of theory.
Right.
It's changed a lot, but
Sure.
Sorry, continue your thought. I got.
Oh, no. I think there is a like an impulse that is exacerbated online to have a take about everything. Like I have to have an opinion on everything that crosses my dashboard because I don't know. This might be something about like being socialized male or something. I don't know. I've learned to step away from this even before I started transitioning. Because it is this thing of like, well, I probably have an understanding of everything, but then you realize like, actually, maybe I'm not an expert in all things. Maybe I don't know better than somebody who studied this subject for literal actual decades.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's the that's when the privilege wall hits you right in the face. That is a thing that is becoming part of the privileged growing up experience that I think was not part of many generations in the past, but it seems like it's going to be a rite of adulthood. Learning a tiny bit of humility for experiences beyond your own.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got a question. All right. So, okay, this will speak a little bit about a converse. I told you that I have like the most like hardcore audience for when it comes to audience questions, and this one speaks to a conversation that's been going on for a few months.
Okay.
The main thing was about, and it's about gender, and it's about how like there's a good side, like being open, like all the stuff that's happening with regards to making gender more fluid and everything like that is good.
Mm-hmm.
We're good right now, and that I made I will admit, notoriously hot take that I think that in like the longer term future, like, 100, 200 years from now, we might get over the idea that we have set categories called boy and girl that we put people in.
Mm-hmm.
And that it'll just be something that like, people will just have whatever looks and characteristics that they want. And there's not gonna be like hardcore categories. And so I kind of call that post-genderism.
I like that. Yeah.
And they've had some questions like, interrogating like, would there still be transitioning in that society? How, like, what do you tell people today if gender is not a thing that's going to exist? Like, then what do you say to like binary trans people? And it's like, we're not, like, we have a long way to go before that. This is like very theoretical.
I've wrestled with that idea a lot. And I use the idea of like a genderless future as like a speaking tool. But the first point is to say we're a long ways away from that. And I think the internet kind of inflates the degree of progress we've made, where we have a perception of a large group of people who are pushing towards this more like gender diversity, but there are very large swaths of the world in which this like change is not necessarily occurring as fast, and huge corners of like the States where I'm in Oklahoma, and like
bastion of progressive politics.
Yeah, exactly. So it's I think it's easier to see the progress online and kind of inflate how much it's actually happening. But I do think it's like I do think eventually we will hit that point, assuming that other factors don't exacerbate other problems, assuming like society is still around in 100 years. But I think like as far as the question of will people still like transition, I don't know that in a hypothetical genderless future, I don't know that we would still call it necessarily transitioning. But I think like body dysphoria is not just related to society. Well, I guess it's impossible to say for sure whether that's the case. Like gender is a complicated mess of a million different factors, but I think it's still pretty reliable that people will not be happy with the form that their body takes. And there is some evidence that there's a biological factor in being transgender. And so I think I have a hard time imagining even myself in a genderless future where I felt comfortable exploring different gender expressions where I wouldn't want to take HRT. Because I'm actually off HRT now for about a week because of my depression. Accidentally forgot all of my responsibilities for a bit, and like feeling like testosterone start flowing through me again. Like there's so much that I dislike about it, and I didn't realize how nice how much better I felt once I started HRT. Like that's not. I'm pretty sure that's not a culture thing, you know? So
I also imagine that some of these things too are like like we've had like a quarter of one generation where like we've really been open to exploring this stuff, and it's going to take like several generations to unwrite thousands of years of social constructs. Like that's not going to go away overnight. And in my mind, like even like I would have, you know, I think any of us, because we live in such a binary focused world, that we would have a sort of a wig out moment if we all of a sudden got zapped to some future where like gender is an alien concept.
Yeah, and I have a hard time imagining even what that would look like because so much of my experience as a transgender person is based on the fact that I was in the closet, and it took me for like so much of my 20s were defined by being closeted and not realizing I was transgender and like the angst of undiagnosed dysphoria. So it's hard for me to imagine the transgender experience in a world where that's not a thing anymore. And I have friends who are 18, 19 who started transitioning even earlier than that. And I almost feel like even though we are both like trans women, we're speaking completely different languages as far as our human experience goes. And I think that gay people who came out in like the 70s and 80s have a similar disconnect to people who are like coming out, now, where the culture is so hugely different that it's kind of hard to relate to the struggles. And so yeah, it's gonna take a hot minute for these things to like progress on a large.
Yeah. When I was doing my research for my AIDS crisis video, I talked to and interviewed some. I happened to live near like the LGBTQ plus like big community center for the country, like the big epicenter, and I talked to some people from the AIDS crisis. And like their thing is like, yeah, like I always found it a little strange. Like we're in a day and age where like we're worrying about like whether we can put our spouse on our 401ks or whatever, when like my 20s was spent like fighting so that everybody I knew wouldn't die, and a lot of them did anyway. And it was like, oh shit, that's some
Yeah. Yeah, the struggle was a lot more intense, and it's actually something I'm about to start researching more, because my education about like the AIDS crisis during and before is just minuscule. I'm way less educated than I wish that I was, and I need, that's something that I really need to learn more about.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the question though about the post-gender thing was, in a post-gender world, would there still feel people who feel the urge to transition surgically or hormonally? You've kind of already answered that to some extent, yes. I imagine that there will probably be more and better and sophisticated ways as science makes that better.
Yeah.
Would that still be important if genitalia didn't determine societal role?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. It's hard to say for sure. I mean, we're speaking in pure hypotheticals here. It's kind of hard to speculate. Like, it's kind of the science fiction problem where your predictions are based on the present, and they'll always be proven wrong on some level. I think, again, like we focus so much on dysphoria and the disharmony between like body and self, I guess. Uh, there's more to the equation than just that. And I think there's the other side of the coin, which is euphoria and feeling more embodied in a self that is properly medicated or surgically altered. And like I have a hard time imagining like a genderless future where there aren't what we would describe today as trans men who wouldn't want to have top surgery, because that's still a thing that, I mean, the differences in bodies still exist, and one can see another body and feel like they're not that you're not in the body that you feel is right for you. I guess that's kind of leaning on some like outdated ideas of what it means to be transgender, but this whole conversation is complicated and difficult because so much of it is subjective. There isn't like a 100% accurate rubric that you can like tick the boxes and say what does or doesn't count. Like it's up to the individual's judgment, and that will remain true 100, 200 years in the future. And I think like I saw one person in the chat say like probably it'll be easier all around, because if in a hypothetical genderless future that we have like properly advanced science, like medical science and plastic surgery, then there probably wouldn't be as much stigma around different procedures, and you could just get what you want and it'd be fine. Like, need for body modifications go back forever. Like, we've been changing our bodies, like tattooing ourselves and scarifying and doing all kinds of weird things to our bodies forever. I see no reason why that would change.
Someone did just say hello, Sarah Zed.
Oh, hello.
Yeah, that first of all, that's cyberpunk AF.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And I want that cyberpunk story so bad. I do think that, like, yeah, even like I said, we had a quarter generation. By what I meant by that is like the discussions and the way that we're talking about gender and identity right now are like light years from where we like. As somebody in his 30s, I'm someone who has seen this conversation go like leaps and bounds in like just the last decade.
Yeah. Oh, it's gone by incredibly fast.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the internet's fault to some extent.
Internet is great. If it wasn't so terrible, it would be great.
It enhances all the best and worst characteristics of human language and like the realm of thought and communication.
Mm-hmm. Okay, the next question that we've got, like I said, easy mode. Sarah, what is your opinion on the sexualization of characters in media? For example, the over-sexualization of high school girls in anime.
Oof. It's hard. So with anime, it's hard to speak to because that's Japanese media, and I I'd say I'm probably more familiar with Japanese culture than the average American, but I'm still like, I don't speak Japanese. I've never been to Japan. I've just seen a lot of Japanese movie and watched a lot of anime. So like, I don't know. It's kind of gross, and they have a bit of like I mean, Lolita culture is a thing that exists there on a wide scale. I think it's something that we should. I'm not sure. I honestly am not entirely sure, because it's potentially. I see a lot of people who say that it's dangerous and is often used as a way to like groom young people. Yeah. And that can certainly be the case, but there's also the fact that of like fan fiction written by teens that involves like the sexualization of teen characters. I think there are circumstances in which these things are used to explore difficult like personal issues. And I also think like it's the thing is like people below the age of 18 do actually have sex and are sexualized by each other and by culture. And I think whether like there is the complicated the conversation gets complicated around like when it's older dudes who are making like cartoons for young people and they're sexualizing high school girls, like, yeah, that's gross. But there are places where these things become honest explorations of personal experience or just articulations of things that actually do happen. And I don't know, a lot of my feelings about art in general and like what's acceptable and unacceptable in expression kind of has come down to most consistently to like it depends, because there is no blanket one size fits all answer. There are cases where it is unacceptable and there are cases where it is perfectly acceptable. There's an anime called Kill the Kill that involves a schoolgirl uniform that gives you superpowers by feeding off your blood and also hypersexualizes you in the process. And the show features a lot of like TNA and fan service, but it also becomes a very earnest exploration of sexualization of girls in culture. And it's explicitly part of the narrative, and it's about like growing up. So I don't know, these like it's hard to say. And for me, it comes down to like if that's a line you can't cross, that's a line you can't cross. But for some people, it's empowering. For some people, it's not.
And then to throw a red wrench in there, that this also becomes an industry, because like I remembered. This is the worst thing to ever start a story with, but I read an article that was looking at one thing that I did not think about until I read about it, but it's that anime or the manga industry have lobbyists.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, and in Japan, their lobbyists intentionally work to make child pornography laws weak in Japan. And now Japan has internationally really weak child pornography laws, and the anime lobby has their role in that, because if they were to set ground rules, that could hurt their bottom line, which is,
of course,
oh boy, that's just disturbing.
Yikes! I did not know about that. That does. I wish that didn't surprise me. Or I wish that did surprise me, but it doesn't.
What can I say? But yikes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I got to find that article. I read it like almost a decade ago now, but I was just like, holy moly.
Yeah.
It's depressing. Okay, so this is another I guess it's not really it's a couple of things that came across. So somebody in the chat, first of all, there's been a lot of discussions about the orb.
Oh yes, the orb is a feature on my channel. Lots of, especially in my live streams, people go nuts over the orb. I had so the story of the orb is that it's a Christmas thing that my mom made a long time ago that my cousin found and fixed up for me recently. So it's really special to me. For if don't, my mom died when I was 19, so it's like a thing that I have of hers that's sort of always there, and it was given to me this past Christmas. While I was moving, it like dropped in the truck and like cracked in half, and so one of my recent streams is me repairing it, and that was very popular. So people really like the orb. I don't know.
Awesome. Thank you, Ariel Fernandez, for the 2 super chats now. Much appreciated. Okay, so this is something that came from some random geek who has questions, some gender questions.
Oh yeah.
Wondering about whether or not to experiment with HRT, describing I am a man, I am male, but I am not cis. I am a cis-less man, and then kind of later on said maybe non-binary or something. Is HRT something that like you can really experiment with?
Yeah, absolutely. The thing is with HRT, there's no permanent side effects until you get a couple of months in. A lot of the early changes are mood. I can only speak from the perspective of like feminizing hormone replacement therapy. From what I have read, like masculinizing hormone replacement therapy has, I mean, that one has like very, very specific effects where like you start growing facial hair, which is very hard to remove. I speak from experience there, and also lowers your voice. And does that relatively quickly. But still, like, you get mood changes much sooner than you get permanent body changes. So it's totally fine to like seek out hormone replacement therapy and try it for a few weeks, and you'll know pretty quick whether or not it makes you feel better or worse. And chances are, if you're even considering it, it's probably something you'll want. Just throwing that out there. That's been my experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Masculinizing hormone therapy sounds like, as someone who is on that shit biologically, not my favorite. Especially the part where you just like are frustrated and want to fight everything. If it's like a second, what's it called? Second puberty or whatever I've heard it referred to.
Oh yes. Yeah. Yeah, it's great. I love crying all the time these days. Since it's flattened out, although I imagine since I've been off for a while, I'll have a readjustment period. Having emotions all the time is really nice because I didn't have them before, but it does get exhausting where like I'll be walking through the grocery store and I'll just see something that spikes a weird random neuron connection that I can't even quantify, and I just start crying in the store because I'm a child now, I guess.
Everything is an airplane movie.
My preferred pronouns are she, they.
Alrighty. Yeah, Ariel, thank you for the super chats again. The questions do not need to be gender related. We're just kind of feeding off of a discussion thread. But Sarah is a film maker, person, film school, and probably studies a lot of media, does a lot of media breakdown. So if you have questions about that, she'll be able to answer. If you give me, the only thing that I think that we'll just not answer is if like some heavy geopolitical thing from like a country halfway across the world comes up that even I'm like, I'll throw it at you and you can say pass. But sometimes the questions will be, sometimes these guys in the audience are great. Sometimes they get questions like, what's your opinion about the recent election that happened in Kyrgyzstan? And I'm like,
Yeah, I don't know about that one.
I'm 70% sure it happened.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the geopolitical situation in Latveria? Nice try, Garrett. Okay, the next question is come from the same person. Have you seen the anime Ghost in the Shell or read the manga? They don't explore the transhumanism angle in the movies or the series, but you can be any man or woman in that world. I did not know that.
Yeah, I haven't read Ghost in the Shell. I've meant to, but I have seen the film and watched Standalone Complex when I was in high school. That is a pretty common thing of like, there's another book series, and recently it was adapted to Netflix, Altered Carbon, where people can just jump from body to body. I'm not a huge fan of that series, but I like the idea.
Yeah, I have it on my like back burner to watch sometime. I think we watched the first episode and my wife fell asleep. So that's the litmus test for when we decide this is a show Tristan watches by himself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This one is the age-old, the dating question.
Oh.
Is not wanting to date, not wanting to be romantically involved with trans people discriminatory. I think this discussion's only happened 7 million times on the internet.
Yeah. Is it so? The distillation of that question would be: is it wrong to have tastes and preferences? No. Is it wrong to say I don't date Black people? Yes. Is it wrong to say I don't date trans people? Yes. But it's okay to have preferences. It's just like you can't. It's complicated again, like everything, but it's less like if you're feeling a strong aversion to a category of people, that probably means you have some introspection that you need to do. That's sort of where I land. Because, yeah, I don't know.
We also live in a society, and realizing that even things like your tastes and preferences might be shaped by external factors that are not fair, they're not just, they might be discriminatory, but they are out of your control, and they're things you have to deal with that come, like, you realize they don't originate from you, but you have to kind of confront them yourself. Yeah. Because the answer to all questions, we live in a society. Okay, this one comes from the Clockwork King. Hey, Tristan, would you start leaving the live streams up? It's rare I have 3 hours straight to watch a live stream, and I'd watch it at a later time. So Sarah, what do you think about this? No, the answer to that is the streams never go down. They go unlisted. This one is not going to be unlisted because Subscriber Appreciation Day I keep up. But they go unlisted, and all of them are available on playlists on my channel. So if you want to watch one, you can do it, but I just didn't want to pollute the feed, if you know what I mean. By having like my 2 live streams a week taking up the videos tab. Any chance you can find a link to the article? I can try. Jonathan Gilmore, if you reach out to me after the stream, I might be able to find it. I'll have to do some Googling because it was an article I read in like 2012 or something. So, all right. Question: what do you think about anime, i.e., like Ranma half, that present being trapped in a wrong sex body as funny?
Yeah, so I can't speak to the absolute morality of that. I know a lot of people find that like gross. I know that I never watched Ranma, but I am familiar with what it's about, and I read a lot of web comics that did basically the same trope. And I can say that those, like, even though it took me ages to finally realize I was trans and come out, I know that those were things that were affirming to me, and like that's an idea that I fixated on. And so I would say like that's it again comes down to whether there are pros and cons, I guess.
Yeah. What's your personal opinion? Or if you don't want to give, that's fine.
Well, my personal opinion is that I think, I mean, I like stuff like that. I enjoy like gender swap, body swap kind of stuff, but I think it can be done poorly, and I think it can be done very well. And like there are, my approach tends to be that I take it on a case by case basis. I don't swear off necessarily any topic or genre. I prefer to look at each individual work and see how well it's done, and then look at the genre and see like historically what is it actually doing. I think that like probably there's a bit of there's a lot of exploitation with like Ranma 1/2. I mean that came out in like, I think the 80s in Japan, and there's obviously sexualization there. That's a problem, but I know a lot of people, and maybe this is an unintended side effect, like it helped them, and that kind of thing certainly helped me. Yeah, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. It's a 10-point scale that ranges from Freaky Friday on one end and the body swap episode of Futurama on the other.
That's a weird scale.
Yep. I don't even know which is the good or bad one.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe because Freaky Friday is two women swapping bodies, whereas the Futurama one is swapping genders. So maybe that's what the scale is. I don't know.
Okay, so Ariel, thank you for your super chat again. Asking a real tough question, which is your favorite color?
My favorite color would have to be purple.
Took my answer.
Yeah, I don't have much of an association with it, but I like purple.
I used to like green, and then I went to, I don't know how this happened. I went to 2 universities in a row where both of them, their colors were purple and white. And so it's just like, I guess this is just mine now.
Okay.
Unrelated to gender, sorry. That's fine. But what intellectually differentiates Mussoliniist fascism and National Socialism? Can fascism be without racism like Mussolini originally seemed to want? Oh boy. Well, you must have done a little bit of fascism research when you were talking about the hunger or whatever.
Yeah, I actually went to Italy a year ago. Like I did a study abroad semester, and one of the classes that we took was the rise of fascism in Italy. So like I actually do kind of have an opinion on this that's informed by my own research. I would say that as far as can there be racism less fascism, I find that hard to believe, because fascism in a general sense thrives on creating an other, and there will always be some like maybe in that, like it's easy to imagine a hypothetical world where, oh, there's no, like this is not a racist society, so fascism could be without like racism, but we don't live in that world, and I don't think there's anybody anywhere on earth that where you could go where there's not somebody saying like, well, those ethnic group people are the cause for all of my problems. And that kind of just always happens, I feel like. And fascism generally rises in opposition to socialism and communism, but it always seems to devolve into like any other category of people that the fascists disagree with, and that inevitably turns to race if it's not even just like a forefronted factor. Like I think the difference between like Nazism and Italian fascism is one of the differences would be that with Hitler, like his hierarchy of race was a feature that was foregrounded in his rhetoric, whereas the racism with Italian fascism was more of a background thing that came about over time, and he grew to be more Hitler-esque in his views as the war wore on. I don't know. It's been a while since I've done that reading, so I could be misremembering certain things, but I guess the general thing is no. I don't think that you can have fascism without racism in the world that we live in today.
Makes sense. I did a video on fascism once. I feel like I should know something about it. That was like almost 2 years ago. You can't expect me to remember something for 2 years.
So much has happened. So much has happened in the last 6 months, let alone 2 years ago.
Oh yeah, I remembered. Like, I'm trying to think what was going on in January now. No one remembers. No one knows what happened in January 2019. I think I made a video or two. Okay.
I see somebody asking what my shirt says. It says, "So it was all your work." This is just from a secret ending in Silent Hill 2, where the protagonist opens a door and discovers that all of the spooky things happening in Silent Hill were perpetrated by a Shiba Inu, but in front of a control center. And he just falls to his knees, like, "So it was all your work," as this little dog is just pulling levers and barks. Anyway.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's a masterpiece. Anyway.
Unique. All right. Do you have any thoughts on the Destiny stuff that's been going on? The Steve Bennell? All right.
I don't know anything about that.
All right. Me neither.
I've seen people throw Destiny's name around, and I have intentionally not looked into it. Like there's a whole side of YouTube. There are YouTubers who explicitly make it their job to respond to like right-wing pundits. I am not one of those people, and I don't have anything substantial to like add to that conversation. So I try to ignore it as best I can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the only thing I can think to add that is my last knowledge of Stephen Bonnell, otherwise known as Destiny, was when he was a semi-professional StarCraft 2 player, and he had a reputation for being grumpy and a bad sport. I guess he does politics now. No idea. All right. Oh, Ariel, thank you. I feel like a busker here getting requests. Phalangism was a form of fascism, right? Phalangism.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
I don't know. I feel like I could just trip people up by just turning every like common last name into an ideology and seeing what would come out. Oh, phalangism, I guess, is like the ideology of fascist Spain, like of Francisco Franco and stuff.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, I'm not super keyed in on that either. Okay. Do you believe in magic in a young girl's heart? I don't know what the reference is there. Do you?
I'll say yes, because I think I know the reference, but I'm not entirely sure, and I'll just say yes and leave it at that.
Okay. Question for Sarah Zed. Should we end all unjustifiable coercive hierarchies? This is some random geek saying, "Are you an anarchist?"
I would say I am, and I guess like my end point is yes, like an informed anarchism in the traditional sense of building in building obsolescence into every hierarchy, such that it only exists as long as it needs to, and that everything is cooperative. Not so much in the like no government, no rules, like misinterpretation of anarchism. But I also think that is kind of like the genderless future, a long-term future thing that doesn't necessarily, like, my goal right now is more towards socialism, and I call myself a socialist. Like, I do think that that anarchism is like the end goal, but there are a lot more achievable things to be like to strive for in the short term.
Okay, that makes sense. I concur. I still call myself an anarchist, but I have been thoroughly exiled from most anarchist discussions as a damn dirty liberal. That's what BreadTube calls me anyway.
Oh, weird.
Because I sometimes say, "Hey, Americans, you should vote for Bernie Sanders," and not try to think that you can like overthrow the state or something with like AR-15s or something.
Yeah, there is a very short-sighted, bordering on selfish and irresponsible perspective that that participating in an unjust system is inherently wrong. But like, if that's the only means of participation that you have that doesn't involve violence, then like, yeah, you should probably vote, you should probably participate, because we don't live in an ideal world. We live in the world that we have, and you have to be practical and pragmatic at a certain point. And like, part of the reason why I describe myself as a socialist is because that's a word that is palatable for a larger group of people. So while I do like lean towards anarchism in my actual ideology, it's easier to say I'm a socialist because it doesn't have the same associations that the word does. And it's like, that's kind of my whole thing, is you've got to be practical. Like, what can you actually do in the real world to make the changes that need to be made to make the world a better place? And part of that does, yes, involve, if Sanders becomes the DNC nominee for president, yeah, voting for Bernie Sanders, because he's a hell of a lot better than our current president.
I've been thinking a lot about Bernie Sanders because I might have just encoded a 28-minute video about him.
Oh gosh, yeah.
So yeah, I'm a Sanders. Obviously I'm a Sanders stan. If you look over,
yeah, I saw the pin. Yeah,
that dates all the way back to like 2010. All right, we've got another bill has been dropped in the hat. Thank you, Ariel. Sarah, did you know that Fulgencio Batista wanted the Allies to declare war on Franco-Spain during World War II?
Nope.
All right, well, now you know. Very well done.
Yeah.
Okay. If you were talking about fascism and Nazism, what about fetishism of fascism and Nazism and anime? Oh man, this is the thing. We could talk about everything and then we talk about about your opinion of it in anime. So fascism and Nazism in anime.
I don't know so much about the fetishization of fascism in anime. I think that there is an undercurrent of nationalism in a lot of Japanese media, just because of recent Japanese history. I think, I don't know. I think that there's a lot of, in media in general, there's sort of an unintentional fetishization of fascism, where we often depict the Nazis as cold, calculating geniuses who are like perfectly clean and perfectly well put together, when the reality was that they were kind of a bunch of bumbling dumbasses. And by virtue of portraying them as these cold, calculating, perfect sort of people, we're kind of portraying them the way they wanted to be portrayed by making them look cool.
Sort of just getting the folding ideas video right now to put in the chat to elaborate on this. The Triumph of the Will video.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some further reading for you guys.
Yes.
Yeah, I will say a little bit to this, and that is, so this is from Gad Yariv. As somebody, Gad Yariv lives in Asia, the other side of it, but that's fine. In some places, like, because this comes up in India too, that the Nazis were they don't have the same emotional like darkness attached to the Nazis that like say the West has. So like the horrors of the Holocaust, the never again mentality doesn't penetrate as hard there. And so very often the aesthetic of Nazism becomes more of a thing. And so you find like in India, there's like a bit of a shock when people found out that there was like a Nazi theme restaurant.
Oh my gosh.
And I do think that in Japan, there's like Nazi chic as like a dress code or like a weird way to dress.
Yikes.
All right. Ariel wants to know, do you know who Batista was?
I don't know enough. There are vague things that I know. Yeah.
Ariel Fernandez is a Floridian, but Fulgencio Batista was like the last president of Cuba before Franco.
Right.
Before oh my God, what happened to my brain today? Before Castro.
Yeah. I know. Okay. Yes. Like there were a couple of different. There's a lot of. I have like vague secondhand knowledge, but this is an area that I don't know enough about.
Yeah, he oversaw Cuba being like a sort of U.S. puppet state that was like full of gambling and weird stuff like that. It was turning into like America's Atlantic City type thing before.
Okay.
Communism. Okay. So we've covered Nazism and anime. What can we talk about with anime next? Which is the best province and why is it Quebec? Well, yeah, you're right. Quebec is the best province. Hot take here in Canada, though.
I don't have an opinion because I've never been to Canada, and I honestly have no idea about the differences between any of the. If you showed me a map of Canada, I couldn't tell you which one was which.
All right. Well, a little bit is that Canada has 10 provinces. Quebec is the only province where 80%, the majority of the population speaks French as their first language.
Yeah.
They're kind of like Scotland in that they're a different nation within the same country. And they have a distinct culture, quote unquote, distinct society. They've tried to secede on multiple occasions. And most recent one was in 1995. And so if you go, but like tensions are high enough that if you go to some parts of the country and you have Quebec license plates, you'll actually get your car keyed.
Oh, wow.
Some places like in Alberta really, really hate Quebec because reasons. And so they just want to, like you will be very unwelcome in some places if you express yourself as a Franco-Canadian or of any kind, but there are French people all over the country, so it's a strange thing to do. But
it's almost like the sorts of ideological perspectives are irrational. Almost like.
Oh, do we have any thoughts on presidential candidate Michael Gravel?
I have never heard this name.
Okay. Fun story. Mike Gravel is a former senator, I want to say. And this senator is running for president as an 89-year-old Democratic Socialist who doesn't want to be president and is just running for the explicit purpose of getting Bernie Sanders to be more what's it called? Be less imperialistic.
I actually think I do know who this is. Yeah. No, I think I listened to a podcast interview with him recently, and I think that's because Bernie Sanders essentially did that in the 2016 election, just being in the debates and being in part of the public conversation pushed a lot of the conversation further left and helped create popular support for like Medicare for all. So I think I think this similar thing with at any point somebody further left than Bernie is a great idea. Getting them if he crosses that threshold and is able to be on the podium with 60 other white dudes, it's a good thing.
Yeah, it's specifically on foreign policy. And Ariel, all right, actually, I'm Cuban, born in Cuba, raised in the state of Florida since the age of 3. Thank you, Ariel. I do think that people are going to start to suspect that you might be George Soros. But there was a really funny thing that that came up on Twitter because of Mike Gravel, because like that was going on. But then last week when I was like walking, because I live really close to where like the local government is, where there's like, I guess, mining political issue happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so they run hyper specific ads to lobby to politicians and staffers and stuff. And so I got, so there was like bus stop ads specifically by like the Gravel Council about
oh my gosh,
why you should buy gravel.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. And, all right. So Kelly just got home, so I'm going to wrap up in a bit. We'll just take. I've got 5 questions, and we'll finish these, and then we will. There's curry that I want.
Ooh,
yeah.
Curry sounds good.
All right. That dating trans people question. What I meant was, can you support the LGBTQ movement while still being viscerally, i.e., totally irrationally uncomfortable with the idea of dating trans people?
I mean, yeah, you can. But I don't know. I think like you say yourself that it's an irrational, uncomfortable feeling. And that's the point at which you should probably say like, okay, so this gut reaction I'm having is not rational. And I don't like, you're clearly uncomfortable with it. I do think that's something you should introspect. Cause like I'm no less feminine than like a biological woman. And these things are not, it's I haven't experienced enough of this on my own to be able to say with like anger or vitriol, like this is how you should behave. I just think that you should be willing to give trans people a chance, like the same chance that anybody else has, because it's really not, I don't know. I just think that's an unacceptable way to behave. And like, you can still support the LGBT community and like support trans people. Like these levels of like being an advocate, being an ally, being an ally is not something you are, it is something that you do. And like, there are ways that you can be progressive and ways that you can be regressive. Like there's more to it than just that. I don't know.
CR Smith, thank you very much for the super chat saying that I'm the best and we need a dance stream. Interesting thought. George Soros says, Sarah, Batista was the de facto leader of Cuba from 1933 to 1940, an elected president from 1940 to 1944, and a U.S.-backed dictator from 1952 to 1959. So you know.
All right.
Did BreadTube really do that? Yes, there was a BreadTube discussion about whether or not I was a real socialist. Sarah, what video games, if any, are you currently playing?
Oh, gosh. I've been playing Crypt of the Necrodancer and thinking a whole lot about Death Stranding. And kind of wanting to play Wolfenstein 2, the new Colossus again, but I'll probably just end up playing the New Order because gameplay wise, it's much better.
Good answer.
Yeah.
I wish I wish I was. I haven't been gaming at all a lot lately, but I've been wanting to give Dwarf Fortress the good shake.
Oh yeah.
Thought Slime got me onto the Dwarf Fortress, and I just have to like do like the serious playthrough at some point.
Yeah.
Hey Sarah, I have a trans friend who tries to quote be one of the good ones and makes fun of other trans people by saying that they're just doing it for attention. Should I do anything about it or no?
Okay. What do you mean by do anything about it? Like, that's an ominous way to put it. You should probably say, hey, that's kind of a shitty way to behave, because it is. And like, just because you're trans doesn't mean that you can't be transphobic.
Yeah. You tell Blair to be nice.
Yeah, that's what. And like that's just that's an unacceptable way to behave, and they don't get a pass. And like it's sort of weird, like if you're say a cis man telling your trans friend, hey, stop being transphobic, there's some weird optics to that. And like that's, I don't know, that's a strange conversation to have, but like that's still not cool.
Do it in like a heart to heart.
Yeah.
Not in like a bar with a bunch of people.
Yeah. And maybe even just put it in terms of like, this is making me uncomfortable and I wish you would stop. Because even that can be enough to like get people thinking differently. I don't know.
All right. Curry calls, but one last question from Alexandria Jarvis. And this, I think, is the most poignant and hard to answer question. So it's a good way to end, which is, Sarah, when will you become a full-time Fortnite streamer?
Probably never, because Epic Games has deeply exploitative and immoral development practices and treats their employees like garbage. And I only played Fortnite because my friends were playing it. But if I make enough friends who play Fortnite, I'll become a permanent Fortnite streamer, and then I'll get my name on the next Mountain Dew imprint. So there you go.
Alrighty. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Sarah. Like I said, we'll get you again near the end of the month because YouTube screwed you over.
First it was tornadoes and then it was Google.
Yeah. We'll see what happens next time.
Yep.
So we'll just finish off with a little bit of words of wisdom, which is that Batista's return to power did not herald a return to progressivism. He became obsessed with gaining acceptance in Cuba's upper class. And everybody, sorry to disappear so fast. Just I want to eat dinner. So everybody, please have an amazing weekend, and we'll be back for part 2 in a few weeks. And also, pitch your stuff.
Oh yeah, I'm Sarah Zedek. You can find me on Twitter at HMSNoFun. I have a YouTube channel called Let's Talk About Stuff and a podcast called Trans Questioning Podcast.
Awesome. All right. Goodbye, friends.
Goodbye.